Just change.
All right, man. There's nothing like waking up to the sound of the war chant in the morning. Happy Tuesday to everybody, Chop Nation. Welcome to our show. I am JB here with my co-host Jeremiah James. Welcome to Chop Talk. If you are new to our show, welcome. Please listen, subscribe. We are on episode 5. We've made it past a month. Lucky number 5. So we are so excited to be here. It's really you guys, Chop Nation, that are making this possible and making us want to continue to do this each and every week. We do a lot to change a lot of things around in our schedule so we can do this because we just enjoy doing this not only for ourselves, but to you as well. And we hope that you're getting something out of it. So feel free to always try to contact us and let us know what we can do better because we're here for you. Right. And just a bunch of goofy guys. If you're listening on Spotify or any of the other podcast outlets, we have a ticker that goes across our screen. So if you look on YouTube, you can see it, but you won't be able to see it there. And it says the views expressed in our show are strictly our own and not affiliated with any sports team. So although we say a lot and mean a lot when it comes to the Noles and the Chiefs, we are not affiliated with either team whatsoever. However, if the Noles do want me to be affiliated in any which way, give me a call. I would love to at any point in time. So I will never tell you no. Maybe one day when I retire, I'll even move to Tallahassee, and I'll even make it better for you to do that. So again, welcome to show number 5. We got a great show. As we said last week, we want to continue our discussion with Jason Menard on the NIL and Transfer Portal discussion that kind of got cut off last week. But we are going to first start, as usual, with our current Noles and Chiefs news. Jeremiah, again, good morning. What is going on in Chiefs Kingdom?
Yeah, good morning. Well, before I go into the Chiefs news real fast, and I'm semi-observant, is that the 5th hat that you've worn?
This is hat number 5.
So we've had 5 episodes. You've worn 5 different hats, correct?
5 different hats. Yep.
I love that. Do I dare ask how many Noles hats you have that are different?
I'm coming to the end. I think ones that you can the only other one that I do have is a one that I got right after they won the national championship in 2013. But it's kind of like disfigured and stuff because it's sitting under like all my stacks of all my other hats. So it didn't look very good. So I think this might come down to like my last one. So I'm trying to get another one embroidered. I like the brand, the game. And so I've got a couple more that I'm getting embroidered Florida State. But yes, I believe this is probably my last new one before I start cycling through.
I was just curious. I was starting to count. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many hats does this guy have?
Yeah,
this guy's a true blue, Florida State fan. I love.
Hey, listen, I got my Florida State shirt on today,
and the shirt on. For all of you
good.
that are listening on podcasts, you can't see all these things. He's got Doak Campbell behind him on the wall.
Florida State shirt on, which is like a good half of my wardrobe, different Florida State shirts. I went up there not too long ago to go to a game during the season, and you just go up there and you end up just spending a ton of money, on just legit Nike, Florida State, apparel up there, Garnet and Gold store, the bookstore, all that kind of stuff. So, I just try to hide those numbers and receipts away from my wife. I actually did. When I got home from Tallahassee, I got everybody gifts except for her because she's a little bit more picky. So I got my kids gifts, I got myself gifts, and I literally took all the receipts off in the trunk. And I just put everything in the bag and then brought the bag inside.
Why did you leave them in the trunk? You have to throw them away.
No, because she will, like, if I go to Publix or if I go to Aldi or something like that, and I throw the receipt away, she'll see it on the top of the garbage and she'll pull the receipt out to see like how much money I spent. That's what she does. And so I'm like, if I don't get rid of these somewhere, she's not going to see them. And then come to find out later on, she ends up using my car, throws something in there, finds the little tags and stuff like that somewhere in the back of my truck and pulls them out. And then later on, she's like, "Did you really spend this much money on their clothes?" I was like, "You weren't supposed to see that."
Like, that's on you, gracious, man. You left it in the vehicle.
I did. I left the evidence. I did not get rid of the evidence.
I feel like we're the exact opposite because for everybody that's listening or actually can see us on YouTube, I'm wearing the exact same hat all 5 episodes. And if you're watching carefully, I've been wearing the exact same shirt as well. And for those who are asking, yes, I do wash it from time to time. So,
Well, when you're on location for like a month and a half, then
I'm
the
literally in a
regular
hotel room
laundry is
somewhere
out
in
the door.
America. We're in Atlanta this week, so this is a West in Sweden in Atlanta, and we're loving it up here. But so get to Chiefs news. I just thought I would
Yes,
dig on you a little bit.
very observant.
Um,
Yes,
yeah, well, so the big news today. This just happened. It just came out. I'm sure you saw this. CEO Clark Hunt announced that the club agreed to contract extensions with President Mark Donovan, General Manager Brett Veach, and Head Coach
Andy Reid.
Andy Reid.
Yep,
And these
saw that.
agreements keep everybody in place. What Hunt said was Mark, Brett, and Andy have achieved historic success together. We were thrilled that they will continue in their roles for many years to come. He said, individually, Mark, Brett, and Andy each represent the best in the National Football League at their respective positions, and together they make up the finest leadership team in all of professional sports. They've been tremendous leaders for this organization on and off the field, and we look forward to continued success in the years. And I don't know if you know this or not, but they've been together since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, they have a win record of .746.
Wow.
They're 100 wins, 34 losses. They've claimed 7 consecutive AFC West Division championships, 4 AFC championships, 3 Super Bowl championships. And then the club has been to 6 consecutive AFC championship games, including hosting the NFL record 5 straight from 2018 to 2022. So you kind of want to keep these guys together, right?
Yeah,
Kudos to the front office for the
absolutely.
Chiefs taking care of business. We love it. Let's keep it going. Let's chop all day long, right?
That's right.
All day
Chop all
long.
day long.
I'm gonna hold number 2 because that's more about my predictions for the Chiefs in terms of the drafts coming up here on Thursday. So I'm gonna hold those for our conversation.
Yeah.
And then the third one I want to talk about is OTAs are in full swing. They started last week. We talked about that a little bit on the last show. Phase 2 of the OTAs run for the following 3 weeks, and they feature walkthrough practices, on-field drills, and then there's the final 3 weeks, which is the phase 3 of it. They feature 7-on-7, 11-11 practices. No live contact is ever allowed at any point in the off-season training activities. Right. So the first day obviously started April 15th. The rookie mini camp will be happening sometime. It's a TBA still. It'll probably happen sometime after the draft on Thursday, probably next couple weeks. OTA workouts are May 20th through the 22nd, the 28th through the 30th, June 4th through the 7th, and then there's a mandatory mini camp June 11th through the 13th, which everybody has to report to. So that is all the Chiefs news for now. I'm not going to say anything about Rashee Rice this week. It's kind of quiet on that front.
Nothing really more happened on that one.
That is all I have to say at this point until we talk about some draft picks here a little bit with Jason Menard on. So let's hear about FSU, my friend.
Oh yeah, man. It's always great when we can actually see football going on, this early on in the year, right?
Yeah.
So had the spring showcase, formerly known as the Garnet and Gold Game spring showcase. Every college team ends up having a spring game. And we actually had some great special guest coaches out there. I'm trying to remember, other than Peter Warwick and Travis Minor, I don't remember who else was out there offhand, but some FSU legends were out there as guest coaches later on in the game. Mm-hmm. But a lot of great things coming out of practice. The running backs were really on the offensive side, really kind of the stars of the game. Mm-hmm. Jalen Lucas, we talked about him being like the fastest guy on the team. He was our Indiana transfer and brother of Ja'Kai Douglas, wide receiver Ja'Kai Douglas. He had a handful of big runs and really showed a lot of flash. Nothing overly crazy, but definitely some good runs. And again, he's not your north-south guy. He's kind of the guy that you're tossing out to in the flat, letting him get going. Mm-hmm. But it was really the all reports were shown, and I watched a little bit of it, was the veteran running backs that really did a lot and really put forth a lot of great effort. And that was Lawrence Tolafili and Keziah Holmes. Lawrence has been with us for years. Again, as we spoke last week, he was the MVP of the ACC championship game and has just been such a crucial part of our offense. And so, especially with losing Trey Benson, he and Keziah Holmes are a great foundation running back wise to have. Not a lot out of Rodell Williams. He was our Alabama transfer, And he was kind of the guy that I'd mentioned last week that we were looking to see how well he would do. And, so nothing overly crazy from him, but nevertheless, it was really good on the running back side of the ball. They really outshined the passing game big time. DJU, he went 12 for 26 for 177 yards and no TDs. Obviously, we had, as I mentioned last week, a couple of our second and third string quarterback that were going to be out for the rest of spring, so they weren't there. So we had walk-ons that were on the other side of the ball from DJU, and showed some great things, but nevertheless, the passing game just wasn't where it really needed to be. And I had mentioned on episode probably 2 or 3 where Mike Norvell was really challenging the wide receiver group as to who was going to step up. And so obviously Malik Benson, Alabama transfer, he's been the best guy. He's really the guy that's been stepping up through the spring. And he was the one that was really shining the most in the spring showcase before he went down. So again, came down on his lower left leg and was actually carted off the field. So prayers up to him, prayers up for him and the team. And again, as usual, it's next man up. Who on the wide receiver room is gonna take that charge? With the we're actually at a point now where we just finished part of our we were disciplined a certain amount of time in the transfer portal, rules.
Yeah.
Breaking those rules like every other team. But again, I'll digress there. And so part of that punishment was, we couldn't talk to individuals transfer portal wise for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
So that's up. So now I would imagine we're probably going to go out there, especially with losing, all those guys that we did lose towards the draft and to other teams last year. And then with Malik Benson going down, Destin Hill, still kind of injured. He's out for spring, and he's just kind of been body made of glass kind of deal. So I would imagine they would probably look transfer portal wise for, wide receiver help there. But DJU, certainly he did great, but the defense is really will put a lot of pressure on him. But speaking on injuries before I move on, the only touchdown pass was thrown by another walk-on, Michael Grant, to Vontravius Jacobs. And he was a standout second-year guy, and was under Malik Benson or after Malik Benson, who really had an opportunity to really shine. And boom, one day after this, the transfer portal opens up. He declares he's gone. So this transfer portal nonsense is, I call it nonsense only because of the way of no regulation, right? I'm obviously a Florida State fan, and we don't get to where we were at the end of last year at 13-0, and then even the season before, and then heading into it without the transfer portal. So it's not as if I have a problem with it. It's just there's got to be some type of regulation, to it.
Yeah, you guys are like fifth, aren't you? In terms of college teams, you guys are fifth or sixth in terms of pulling from the transfer.
Yeah, so currently right now we're either fourth or fifth. Yeah, depending on which site you look at, we're fourth successful with the transfer portal. Oh, Mike Norvell is a transfer portal king, right?
Yeah.
He goes on there, he can get some big targets. So I know that he'll fill in those gaps appropriately, in that regard, and really bring people in. But it's always like this: fingers crossed, are you going to be able to keep them or not? But the injuries are piling up. We were already down 6 or 7 players for the game already, and then he went down. Offensive lineman TJ Ferguson, he also got injured. He was a guy that we were looking to really have stepped up. He was helped to the locker room, but I think kind of under his own power. So I think his injury shouldn't be like that bad. But the overall growing theme this spring was the dominance of the defense.
Okay.
And, so you take that, right? The defensive line, especially Oregon State transfer, I'm going to mess up his name. I was talking to my buddy at work yesterday. He was trying to help me pronounce it. Sione Lolahea.
Okay. That sounds right.
If that's even how you pronounce it. But so if you ever listen to this, man, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to butcher your name. He dominated the D-line as expected. So he's been a great transfer coming in, really put a lot of pressure on the QBs there, especially DJU, and really forcing him out of his rhythm. So, you look at it and it's like you want to see the offense overcome these things, but you're certainly glad that the defense is applying some dominance there as expected. the DBs made life real hard for the wide receivers. So although we've got some really young, talented wide receivers, we've got some really, really good DBs at the same time. And it made them very, very hard to get open and get into a rhythm as well. More speaking, and I spoke on these two earlier in our episodes, probably episode 2, about Shyheim Brown and Azariah Thomas. They led the effort in the secondary, and we actually had some young bucks, some young talent that really stepped up behind them. And that was a 4-star freshman defensive back out of Edgewater High. So local guy, Kai Bates. And redshirt freshman DB out of Pensacola, Jabril Rawls. They were 2 young players. Jabril is a redshirt freshman, and Kai Bates is a true freshman. And they both really, really shined as well as the other 2. So that was really kind of the talk of the town out of the spring game, out of the spring showcase. Was the offense wasn't really much to talk about. But you saw some flashes out of the running backs. Yeah. And defensively, you saw a lot of great things out of our DBs, out of our corners, our D line. A lot of individuals really stepping up to the plate there. So yeah. But we're still early. We're still in April. So but again, you just, as a Florida State fan, you just see it and you're like, all right, it is only April. All right, there's a lot of time. Okay, but you just have so many expectations. But so that is what is going out of Tallahassee at this particular moment. Okay. And so obviously hoping to stop with these injuries. These injuries, I mean, they always going to get piled up. But, we'll see how the transfer portal goes, see how many of our guys, I mean, obviously we'll pick up more, but see how many of the current roster, leave now that it's open again. And some of these guys like Von Travius, he saw, I think he saw the wide receiver room and probably looked at, lack of playing time as well. We talked about Greedy Vance last week, who I believe got picked up by USC. So, good for him. He's a great player. We would have probably used him a lot. For sure. Good luck to him, in his future endeavors. So, but that is what is coming out of Tallahassee.
Okay.
So now that we've got that out of the way, we've got Mr. Jason there in the green room. We're going to bring him in again to continue our conversation on the NIL and Transfer Portal as it opens back up. We continue our conversation because there's a lot to say, and I'm going to try to, allow Jason to maybe get a word in. I felt like I was hopefully allowing him to get a word in last week before I took the floor. I'm like, we're running out of time. I haven't spoken yet. I'm taking the floor right now.
We're timing back in. We're timing back in now. Let's bring him in.
Yeah. So now
school to run. Let's go.
That's right. So we made some time to have this discussion here. So let's welcome back Mr. Jason Menard here.
All right. Jason.
Mr. Jason, welcome back. Thanks for taking the time to come back and see us again. That just means you loved being here, so that's awesome. We loved having you, and welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I'm gonna tell those middle school kids I'll come back and beat them in pickleball in a little bit. So
that's right. I got to get out there. We even have a pickleball small group at our church that I'm a coordinator of, and I have not been out there yet to experience playing pickleball.
JB, when I get back into town, you and I, let's go mano a mano.
Let's go do it. I got to learn how to play.
I'm going to beat you. I'm going to show you how this is done now.
Oh, perfect.
Please. Hey, Jason, I failed to mention last episode our relationship. We should probably share that. I don't think we did that. Jason and I are cousins. I don't know if people know that. We have done that first episode, JB. We talked about family members. Jason is one of those standout family members who's just killed it in sports. Okay. We're just so proud of you, man, as a family. Just what you've done at such a young age as an athletic director. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Chop Nation.
Thank you. Jeremy is my oldest cousin I have. So I just remember a lot of times of all the Easters and the Christmases and the, and just looking up to him. And so it's been fun to kind of reconnect as adults too. It's just a different kind of.
Well, everybody looks up to him. He's like 6'4".
True.
6'3". Close enough.
Sorry.
6'3" and a quarter. 6'3" and a
quarter. His family got all the size. My family's tiny. If I'm the biggest one in my family, we're in trouble. So
here you are still winning national championships.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. It's we're glad that we can have some family ties on here, which we've had and the success that you guys have had. You guys have just added a lot to what we have. It's awesome to just see a family of believers, right? Yeah. So, a lot of families out there, you have individuals or you have families that are every day praying, for those family members to really come back to the Lord and to having those discussions with them. So it's awesome to see that in that family line and friend line there, that there's that the Lord has certainly surrounded himself and put his hand on you guys as a family. So that's awesome. And we're really glad again that you are here, my friend.
Yes, we are.
So I don't know where Jeremiah ended up interrupting me last week and cutting me off for the episode.
Probably mid-sentence.
Probably mid-sentence.
Probably mid-sentence.
All right. Before you keep going on, your face is getting red. We need to cut this off. But Jason, do you want to start us off, man? I don't remember. I do. I'm sure you got some stuff to share from last week. So
if you remember, I was getting ready to stop you and go, all right, I'm going to go play devil's advocate now. Cause I do feel like both of us had pretty similar thoughts on
I do remember that
this whole thing, and it's gotten way out of hand, and there's got to be something to figure out. So I'm going to now say, and this is what really ticks my wife off and it ticks my mom off, is that I love to play devil's advocate. I love.
I do too. I do too.
To flip the script a little bit. So that's what the whole time you were talking, I'm like, I agree with everything you said. So how can I turn this now?
Yeah, let's turn it. Let's debate this. Let's go for it.
This is where I came to. Okay.
Yes.
We're both got our heads so far in the sand. If we both think all of this stuff wasn't happening pre-NIL, right?
100%.
So my question to you is it better now, or is it better when we just didn't know? You know what I mean? Like,
that's a good question.
I'm a Kansas Jayhawk fan. Okay,
I'm going back in the sand, buddy. I'm going back in the sand.
I'm a Kansas Jayhawk fan, and I'm a huge Bill Self guy. But you're calling me crazy if you don't think that I don't think that team was paying players for a long, long time. Okay, it's because it was the nature of college sports. We saw the Adidas thing, we saw the Nike stuff, we saw how all of that unfolded, right? But the difference was it was kind of the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain kind of stuff, and we were all fine with it as long as we were getting dudes and we were winning titles and we were competing. Everybody's fine with it. But now all of a sudden the curtain is now pulled, and you don't have to now hide what was probably happening, and we're all ticked off about it now. And so I'm trying to figure out: is it better when I just didn't know? Or is it better now where we can actually just see what it's like? So I guess answer that. What do you like better? Do you like back in the old, Blue Chips days where it was just more secretive and you didn't know and you could just be a fan and stuff like that? Or is it better now the way it is?
I mean, you're always for integrity, right? And so, I mean, but again, you knew it's not me that's doing it, but I also have the knowledge to know, just as you said, that it's happening all over the place. And, so you bring up some of the big name guys, like I'd mentioned Cam Newton. Well, Cam Newton just recently spoke on a show where he was explaining his recruiting process, to Florida and what was going on and how much money they had offered, like his family and this, that, and the other, and how it was going to try to be hidden and so on. And so you knew that this was happening like all over the place. And so I just feel like that we've gone from two sides of the spectrum. So I agree with you. Maybe it's better to just not know that it's happening. But if you're opening up the floodgates the way that you are right now, it's like you've done nothing to regulate anything. It's just like anything else in your life. If you go and you make a big decision in life without any type of preparation, then you're going to have an onslaught of things that maybe you weren't prepared for. And so it sounds like the NCAA just pressed the button from what it looks like and says, okay, we're opening this up. Boom. Now we're going to allow the states to regulate it, and we're going to clap our hands and wash our hands from it. And then we're going to do nothing else after that. But we are going to stay here to make sure that these little tiny rules that you follow them. And if not, we're going to lay the hammer down on you if you don't follow these little tiny rules that everybody's breaking. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to go check everybody, to make sure that everybody's doing it. But if we just so happen, to catch somebody, or listen to somebody blow a whistle, then we'll do it. And it's ridiculous to me. I completely agree with you. So yeah, in hindsight, you're like, with how frustrating it is, it was probably better that we just didn't know, that this was going on. No, so I'll give you that one, for sure.
I think there's a serious, probably some unwritten rules in college athletics too, like, because even now, like you said, with some minor guidelines, they're still getting broken. People are still going around them, but I think there's some unwritten 100%. Rules because. Again, I apologize. I know this is more of a Florida State thing, and you're probably more of a football guy. I'm more of a basketball-oriented guy because I'm a Kansas Jayhawk, and our football.
Oh, happens there too. Yeah, for sure.
Was bad. But the one guy that keeps coming to my mind that's a familiar name to everybody would be Zion Williamson. And that's what the KU coach got in trouble for, was a connection in a phone conversation about offering the bag for Zion Williams and maybe a house, or I can't remember what it was. It was one of their assistant coaches. But guess where Zion signed with? Duke. Right. So what did he go there for? The Brotherhood? Is that what he went to Duke for? Like, what, we know there was an offer from Kansas before it was all legal. He didn't go to Kansas. But then Duke was never in question with any sort of, well, how did he end up there? And so, but I think there's just that, while KU's getting hammered with some of that stuff, KU's not throwing Duke under the bus. There's got to be some unwritten, loyalty with some coaches and stuff like that going, hey, we know what you're doing. You know what we're doing, but we're not going to throw each other under the bus. If you get caught,
it's a little bit, it's a this, right? It's a little bit of wink, wink, handshake. Yeah.
It is.
Gentlemen's
agreement. Apparently Kirby Smart didn't get that memo. So
is he throwing people under?
Yeah. He's the one that blew the whistle on Florida State. This is why we're dealing with all of our transfer portal penalties right now.
Gentlemen in the Big 12.
Kirby Smart, only for Georgia to then get in trouble not too long after that for transfer portal violations. And it's like, you know what? Just as you said, you know what? Keep your mouth quiet. Go do your thing. If you're going to sit there and try to bend the rules, then so be it. But don't go blow the whistle on another team that is a prominent team and then go out and do them yourselves.
So he learned from probably the worst one ever with Nick Saban. And so the problem is that's why Saban got to this era where all of a sudden everybody's doing what he did for a long time, and he retires. He gets out.
Right.
The playing field is now even. All of my guys are going out and doing all the things that I did for a long time, and it's legal. And all of a sudden he's just like, I'm going to walk away. No, he's had a great career. He doesn't need to work anymore. He has nothing else to prove. I get that.
Right. Yeah.
But when you're looking around going, okay, everybody else can do what I did for a long time legally now. His job is done. It's time to move on,
And you know who's like one of the biggest, the biggest people to call him out, Nick Saban out, was Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And because Jimbo Fisher is doing some of that same stuff even at Texas A&M, and so now he gets called out for stuff, and it's like, well, I mean, they're not even doing well anyways, but he gets called out for stuff, and he sees Nick Saban's reaction, and then he comes out and says stuff like, no, I mean, I'm doing this, but like you're certainly doing this. So you can't sit there and say that everybody else is. So he's the first one. And it's like, well, dude, you got your own coaches, that are just doing the same stuff that you did. So you can't stand there and call out anybody, because now they learned under you.
Yeah. I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves as fans is when you have the naive mindset of your program's not doing that.
Right.
And again, it's the landscape of college sports, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you like it or not, it's what's happening. And again, I'm a KU fan, and before NIL, I'm pretty sure we were doing some stuff that probably shouldn't have been doing. I get it, but it doesn't make me not a fan. I still love the Jayhawks.
Right.
So I still root for them to win the national title every year.
Still want to win, right?
Want to win. So, but yeah, so that's what my devil's advocate theory was. It was life better really when we just knew it was happening, but we had our heads in the sand and tried to ignore it all? Or is it better now that it's out in the open, it's just super messy? Or is there a middle ground of, hey, regulation, let's pay kids if they feel like that's what's needed to do, but there's got to be some guidelines to it that tighten the reins compared to where it is now. So
yeah. My thought on this is, and this is a question really for both of you, did the NCAA bring this on themselves? As I was doing a little bit of research, are you guys familiar with how long they've been sued for antitrust issues? This goes back to 84. There's cases 84, 2014 with the Alston case, where they basically lost. They tried to appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Ninth Circuit. They lost that. It's still a Sherman antitrust. They were unhappy with the result. This is the NCAA now. They appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then the same decision got upheld. But this time it became the controlling law of the nation, where all 9 judges, we got conservatives and liberals, all agreed 9-0 that the NCAA was wrong. And so I want to read this statement from Brett Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh, real fast, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. I want to get your thoughts on this. He said that everyone agrees that the NCAA can require student athletes to be enrolled students in good standing, but the NCAA's business model of using unpaid student athletes to generate billions of dollars in revenue for the colleges raises serious questions under the antitrust laws, which they've lost every single one so far over the last 30 years. In particular, it is highly questionable whether the NCAA and its member colleges can justify not paying student athletes a fair share of the revenues on the circular theory that the defining characteristics of college sports is that colleges do not pay student athletes. And if that asserted justification is unveiling, it is not clear how the NCAA can legally defend its remaining compensation rules. And that was his concurring opinion. So my question to you guys, with all that knowledge, right, that there has been no transparency from the NCAA level, hearing a 9-0, win in the Supreme Court. What do you guys think about his thoughts about the Supreme Court, about literally every single court in America saying the NCAA is wrong? What are your thoughts on that? I'd love to hear it. So whoever wants to go first.
Jason, go ahead.
I think an underlying thing that comes to my mind is a nonprofit organization such as the NCAA is a multi-million-dollar entity.
Oh, yeah.
And billion, yeah. I think that's your first problem. Like, I don't think any sort of establishment like that should be making millions, especially on behalf of the kids either. So that needs to be more of a realistic, zero-based type of a organization, kind of. But that's kind of a government, right? Like, I don't think politicians should also be millionaires when they aren't that when they get into office either. But that's the way it is. Sorry, that's a different tangent too. But the first cases I remember was back as like almost more like the Ed O'Bannon case it was like a video game, and that was kind of the one I remember going, which would have been a long time ago too. And I still just go back to, like, if you're going to make the decision to go to the university and be a student athlete, there are some major perks that come with that I just don't think that you need to become a employee of that university or whatever. I just think that you're signing up to be a student athlete and what comes with that, or you can decide to go professional in whatever activity is. But I don't really feel like there needs to be I just don't feel like we need to treat the athletes as employees and pay them. But I also don't think the NCAA should be hoarding all this cash either. There should be some better systems in place to control all of that. So
JB, what are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, they've kind of left it up to the schools and the state to kind of decide. And at first, when you were able to, when NIL first came out, then it was more or less like, all right, you can use like your own name and your own image to go, make some type of money. It didn't mean that every single player under the sun was then going to be getting paid all of these millions of dollars to come to each school. It just meant that you, Jeremiah, you're good at football or whatever. So if you want to go sign a deal with Nike or Under Armour or whatever, if they're offering you one, then you can. You're an all-star athlete, whatever, then you can go make this money.
Yeah.
But they put no regulation on it. So now these collectives get involved. And then now the mindset of, okay, it went from you can make money in your own image and likeness to now you're going to be a pay for play. And so it made that transition from you can no longer make, you can make, I mean, yes, obviously part of that as well was the ability for, for you to entice them in some particular way. But the collectives were there to, to essentially assist in getting those opportunities for those players to have those meetings to do that. So like, Caitlin Clark, even when she was in college, like I think she was, I don't remember who she signed with.
Indiana.
Well, no, Indiana. Not Wise, but
WNBA.
Yeah, whatever. Like, I don't know if it was Nike or Under Armour, whoever.
Her sponsor got it. Yeah,
sponsor. And so you could sign with these sponsors, to make money as a player. But me, if I'm riding the bench, I'm not going to get that opportunity. But that's okay. The freedom is open for me to search it out. But if I just don't get it, I just don't get it. It's no different than being picked last on a basketball team. If you're better than me and you get picked, then so be it. You got picked. You're better than me. So, and that's just kind of the way that it is. Not every single NBA player gets Nike coming and knocking at their door. Not every single person is LeBron. So it's just the fairness of it is, but now you at least have the opportunity to do so without penalty. And it transitioned from that and transitioned into how much money are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
There was an interview the other day with a football coach. Man, I'm trying to remember who it was. I can't remember who. And I was trying to his voice was real kind of raspy after practice, but I was trying to understand him. So he went through text messages, and he didn't name the player he was talking to, but he was talking about his recruiting, and he sat there and he essentially shared the text messages on how they recruit. And so this player he's sitting there talking to, trying to recruit to the transfer portal. I mean, he's reading it in this press conference and says, if we can just kind of, talk about, like money, I was getting, 6 or 7K a month. I live with my girlfriend. I have 3 dogs. Like, these are the conversations that these 18 and 19-year-olds are having with these 15 and 16-year-old coaches in order to get them to come and play.
Yeah.
And it's like, they sat there and they knew that this would happen, and they just allowed it to go off the rails without any accountability. So now they want to sit there, and you have people that want to get mad at these coaches for leaving and either going to the pros or quitting or anything of that nature, or just are very outspoken, like a Dabo Swinney again, or Nick Saban, that are completely outspoken against, where this is going. I mean, yeah, even Kirby Smart, after they spanked Florida State, he knew why. And so in his interview after the game, he's like, something has to happen. People want to sit there and get mad at Florida State and all those players because they wanted to sit there and opt out. For what? Why play? Like, you're not the days of playing for the pride of wearing that logo across your jersey are gone. You might have your few players that are like, man, I get to play for Florida State. Look at the legacy that is here. I mean, you're talking about Bobby Bowden, multiple national championships. I mean, just the legacy and the honor of playing for Florida State, and looking at Chief Osceola, and just the legacy and the culture there of the Seminole Indian tribe. Nobody cares. They don't care about that. You might have a few people that care about that, but no, they're looking at Florida State's a good school. Am I going to get playing time? How much money am I going to get paid? Like, that's their mindset. Now, that's what they've allowed the culture of college football. Now, mind you, that's why a lot of people were anti-pro sports for a long period of time and love college sports, because you actually had players that were sitting there trying to play. You actually had players that were there playing for the heart of the game, for the team that they were playing for, and to work hard to try to get to the pros where you knew that you were going to make your money. Now it's like, well, I'm just going to go and play and just do my thing. But you have this 18 and 19-year-old telling this coach I was making $6,000 to $7,000 a month. I've got a girlfriend and 3 dogs.
Dogs are expensive. How ridiculous that is? Dogs are expensive, JB.
Yeah, which is why I don't have one. But nevertheless, that's where the transition happened. And so I think that it's absolutely I agree with what he said, is that I think it's absurd that the NCAA and these schools and all their TV contracts make the millions of dollars that they make with ESPN and all these channel networks or whatever, and then they hoard it all. But then you have teams that are sitting there begging for new sporting facilities, begging for just an upgrade in just, anything, locker room, the ability to train here and here. We need a new outdoor facility, indoor facility. We need this, that, and the other. And it's taking these coaches so many years to try to get these things. And it's like, you are making massive amounts of money. Excuse me, if you are an SEC coach, especially, or an ACC coach or Big Ten coach or whatever, you're making massive amounts of money off of these TV contracts. There is zero excuse.
Would you like a sip of my water, JB? I got it.
Yeah, I've got my own water. One of y'all speak for a second while I cough.
So yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you said when you're going back to the people recruiting to Florida State, he basically listed like 3 questions of the order. I don't think that's the order people ask of why they're going to go to colleges anymore. I think the number one question they ask is how much money I'm going to get.
Right.
And then they're going to look at, I like that fit, or I like that coach or whatever. And then, maybe I like that university or whatever, And the other thing that I think this is going down a very slippery slope. And again, and you're a business guy, you'll get this.
Yeah.
You get paid what you're worth.
That's right.
So you take gender, you take race, you take everything out of it, but you're paid what you're worth. But I can see right now going, with the exception of your outliers, your Caitlin Clarks of Iowa,
right?
Like, are we going down a road of like some serious Title IX issues here coming up? Like, And again, are we better than it was 10 years ago with women's sports? 100% we are, but we're still a long way from when you're talking about overall the direction, because right now, football is huge, and women, they don't have a comparable sport that draws the attention like a football does. You know what I mean? So NIL stuff with male sports in college is astronomical right now, but probably not on the women's side. So, but again, it's a slippery slope, because I'm also, like I told you at the beginning of that, was you're paid what you're worth. And like Caitlin, the big storm right now was Caitlin Clark's WNBA contract of like $76,000 a year. Where the counterpart, the number one draft pick last year in the NBA, is signed like a 4-year, $55 million contract. Well, more people watch the NBA than the WNBA. I get that. I totally get that. But is that going to start seeing a lot of those arguments down with the NIL stuff in college? Okay, the women aren't getting paid fairly, or they feel like they should be paid more, and so what are we exposing ourselves from that capacity to?
I agree. And so if the NCAA does change their financial model to, concur with antitrust laws, so they don't have any more lawsuits that they're going to lose, because they lose every single one of them, and that you did bring this up on Title IX, is how would any compensation regime comply with Title IX? How would that work? I don't even know. Love to open it up for you guys and get some thoughts. JB, if you have any. If not, I had another question for you guys.
Go ahead with your question.
So we'll put a pin in that one. And if you think of something, both of you, let me know on the Title IX thing, because that is a concern. The other thing is that I think the NFL does very well to make sure that they preserve competitive balance amongst the teams, because as you know, some teams are in better markets than others. You see this in baseball a lot as well, right? Small, mid-size markets versus the Yankees, for an example. The NFL does the salary cap very well. So if paying athletes, college athletes, requires something like a salary cap in some of the sports, football and basketball come to mind, in order to preserve that competitive balance, how would a cap, if they decided to do something like that, be administered? Because we've already seen it successfully done at the professional level. If you start paying all these athletes at the college level, technically you could kind of just do the same thing, couldn't you? I want to open up for discussion with you guys, get some thoughts on that.
No, you certainly can. But you're still going to have, your caliber of players go to those certain markets, right? So you're still going to have like your good caliber, highly recruited 4-star, 5-star guys that are going to be recruited by those good teams, those SEC teams, ACC teams, Big 10 teams, Big 12 teams, things like that. But you're still going to have like their ability to recruit in those larger market areas is not as well. Like you're not going to have a TCU come and try to recruit in Florida, right? Right. And you're not going to have an Oklahoma try to come and recruit in Florida. Like that's just not their market. They know that they don't really have much of a shot at a good player here when you've got 4 or 5 major universities that may or may not be offering you, something as well. Yeah. So I think it's just that you're trying to get a swing in the balance, but I think that, I still think that nothing changes there. I like UCF's not going to get these big high market guys. It's like, okay, well, I'm being recruited by UCF, Alabama, LSU, Florida State. It's like, okay, well, that's kind of a no-brainer. Then I'm sorry, UCF, unless you just really, really want to come there. So you're just not going to get, in my opinion, that balance still is not going to change. If you're a bigger market team, you're still going to get this bigger market players. Let's jump to basketball and look at the Magic. It's not as if the Magic don't have money to try to offer somebody money. But if KD was a free agent, we know that we're not going to be able to offer the money that he wants to be able to come here. I mean, just in general, it's not as if they don't want to, but they can sit there and be like, oh, well, we'll offer you $20 million. Okay, well, I can go to New York. That's going to offer me $50 million. And it's like, all right, well, then I'm going there. And he doesn't want to come here anyways. He would sit there and he would choose, even if 2 teams offered the same amount, a New York, a Chicago, unless it's a Charlotte, and between Charlotte and Orlando, okay, you might choose Orlando over Charlotte. But, if you're choosing, Orlando versus some of those bigger market teams and they're offering the same amount of money, they're going to go there.
Jason, what are your thoughts? I like what you said, JB. That makes sense. Agree, disagree? Cap? Is that a solution at the college level?
Well,
the cap space?
My first thought is, okay, so let's say your cap space for your football team is, let's just say, $20 million NIL, $20 million to spread over, 85 roster spots, a couple, walk-ons if they get them or whatever. So let's say you exasperate your 20 million, but you still have some dudes that need to get their share, their cut. They want more. So what you're doing now is you're going through the integrity story of going, we're actually going to spend 25, but that 5 is going to be off the table. And now your star quarterback is going to be under the table, and now you're just, you're breaking the rules, and so now you're just back to, back to the square one again of the root of all this problem. That's what I think would happen. You're going to cap them at 20 million. Teams are going to spend more than that. You're just not going to know about it. Yeah. And now you're back to the exact problem where we were, before all that. I think so, but I do think in theory it's fine. I just think it's what you're going to do is you're going to put numbers on paper, but it's not going to be what's the actual numbers happening. That's my thoughts on that.
I think those are very valid thoughts for sure. Let me throw a wrench in it for you guys. This is an upcoming court case. I'm sure you've heard about it. House versus the NCAA is a class action lawsuit in the Northern District of California before Judge Claudia Wilkin, whose previous rulings in the NCAA cases have paved a way for college athletes to profit on their fame and for schools to direct more money into their actual athlete hands. So some of the legal experts have been saying that the NCAA, if they lose this case, and this goes back to what I was telling you guys, right? So it's more of a follow-up question. If the NCAA loses this case, which they've lost pretty much every case since '84, right? Could upend college athletics as we know it. The lawsuit brought by Arizona State swimmer Grant House, which is the House versus NCAA, in 2020 could potentially cost the NCAA and the major conferences more than $4 billion in damages, and lead to this is the key here, to athlete revenue sharing for those multi-billion-dollar television deals for big-time college football games and March Madness basketball. So now with that twist, care to change any answers or leave it as is, or what are your thoughts on that? Because that's happening right now. That's still going.
Right. I still go to the business model of you pay what you're worth, and is a swimmer worth a football player? Your football program funds your swimming team.
Yeah,
that's what happens. Your football team and your basketball team are funding all of those quasi team sports, tennis. That's just the way it is. It's the nature of the business. So, I don't know how exactly I feel about that. I don't think. Again, if the NIL is what it is, you've paid what your name, image, and likeness is. And that swimmer, I've never heard of that guy.
Yeah.
And most people in the country probably haven't. And so he's probably getting more notoriety from a lawsuit than he does his actual athletic career.
Yeah.
So
my thought is the cap space would come if this goes through. They could potentially take the cap space from money that comes from these revenue sharing deals, and the NIL would be separate, and it would be based on individuals. They're able to have agents, that sort of thing. So I think the NIL will be separate from what I'm discussing in terms of a cap space to make sure that it's equitable across the different college, divisions. So, JB,
and your thing would also be like these bigger markets, like we take, for instance, like the MLB, right? Like the Yankees go over their salary cap all the time, and then they just pay the luxury tax on it all, right? So if you open it up to that as well, it's like, okay, well, the bigger markets that are going to be making more money, it's like, okay, well, they're going to have the money to pay that luxury tax, so they're not going to care, to go and sign all those people. So, I mean, you look at their roster every single year, and they go out and get all these big name guys like, Juan Soto last year. And it's like, all right, well, you're probably sitting in the luxury tax, but, you don't care because you're the biggest market in baseball, and you can sit there and you can raise all that money to pay all that. So, again, it depends on then, okay, you put some type of salary cap, but the schools on the problem is that the school is not the one regulating, because technically the school isn't allowed to pay you for anything. The school just works with these collectives. So it's like, okay, well, now what do you do? Do you go put a salary cap on the collectives? Well, how many collectives are there? How do the collectives pay them? So there's so many variables to trying to stop it, because it's not just like the NBA is what's paying you, your money. The team itself is paying you your money. And so until that becomes like the only thing where it's like, okay, well, the collectives are going to raise their money to go to the school, and the school is going to be the only one to write the checks and nothing else, unless you are sponsored by Nike or somebody else, then I don't know if there's any way that you can sit there and put a cap on it.
It's a good thought. Did you guys hear the new news that came out of the NCAA, the board of directors? Okay. So I'm going to share this real fast. There was a number of new policies that came out Two major ones regarding transfer portals, which is what we're talking about, and NIL. And effective immediately, undergraduate students can now transfer an unlimited number of times,
Oh,
provided
yes.
they are in good academic standing in the previous institution. Because remember, before they had to sit out a year, right? They could transfer once, and now that's not the case. In addition, schools will now be able to facilitate NIL deals between student athletes and third parties. This happens August 1st, 2024. Schools will be able to increase NIL-related support for athletes who disclose their NIL arrangements.
Yeah, they have to disclose it. Yep.
I don't know if you guys saw that, but there was an injunction basically, and the judge Clifton Corker, I want to read what he said because I think it's interesting. He said, without relief, the NCAA will continue to deprive plaintiff states athletes of information about the market value for their NIL rights, thereby preventing them from obtaining full, fair market value for those rights, the opinion states. Jason, which goes back to what you said. Their labor generates massive revenues for the NCAA, its members, and other constituents in the college athletics industry, none of whom would dare to accept such anti-competitive restrictions on their ability to negotiate their own rights. Those athletes shouldn't have to either. So that's kind of just my thought. I'm a business executive at heart. You know, I really enjoy what Jason was said. People should get paid what they're worth. You know, these judges are saying legally this stuff doesn't hold up. You know, this in the NCAA in the beginning should have never been able to do any of these things. So they've been weakened. They've been weakened over the last 30 years, and we're going to see more of that coming. It sounds like. So, yeah, any thoughts on that, guys?
Well, yeah, Florida State it worked that exact thing work against them twice this last year. One of our defensive linemen, Daryl Jackson, he had to sit out the whole entire year, and then they changed this like near the end of the season, about halfway, 3/4 way through the season. Yeah. So now he's sitting there where Florida State fought all year long to get him to play, and he could not play until the Orange Bowl at the end of the season. But yet they changed this rule during the middle of that season in order to do it. What was the other half of that rule? So they could transfer wherever and play immediately. And then there was the other half of that.
Yeah. So let me go back to it real fast. The schools can now facilitate the NIL deals.
Oh, yeah. So then again, we're sitting here for a whole entire year with a penalty. Yeah. Florida State said, and so we just got through one part of it. And now we've got scholarship drops and all this kind of stuff for what? Doing exactly what you're about to allow in a few months.
Yeah, they're like, doors are open. Go ahead.
The doors are open for it now. Remember, we said you have no problems sitting there and punishing us now because we drove a guy to an NIL meeting, but yet now you're like, but now we'll allow it.
Right.
So ridiculous. Again, let's finally put a pin in this conversation and move on. With the time that we have, we want to make sure that we can get to NFL draft coverage. NFL draft Thursday night. Very, very excited. Obviously, you're a big Chiefs fan. I'm a big Bucs fan. So very excited to see both teams. You know, obviously you won the Super Bowl. We lost in the divisional round
twice in a row.
However, very, very excited as to what how far the Bucs got, because that was not to be expected. So certainly want to talk some Bucs and some Chiefs news. So. What do you got here on your draft coverage for the Chiefs? But before you do that, give me your top 5.
Overall top 5?
Yep, overall top 5. Before we get into individual teams, let's get into who we feel our top 5 will be.
Shoot, I got you. Go ahead, Jason, if you got somebody. I got to think through that a little bit. I think Caleb Williams. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, see, that's. I was going to start with him. You know, he is. It's almost everything you read about. It's almost. There's never been such a unanimous for a long time. That's the number one. I might be the only person not sold on that in the history of the United States right now. I'm just not. And there we go. We have 2.
I'm also not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do the Bears take though? If they don't take him, who do they take and why?
That's a great question. That's a great
This
question.
Is a quarterback heavy draft.
It is. And if you look at you said asked the top 5, I mean, three of the first 5
Drake
are
May, Jaden
Daniels, quarterback, right?
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
The one, Jaden Daniels would be one, but the one that I got myself circled because he's a winner, he's a straight winner, is JJ McCarthy. He's got really no controversy off the field.
Yeah.
That dude just wins. He's a manager. He's a NFL prototype kind of a quarterback. his body size, everything. Like he hasn't really demonstrated anything to me that's red flag it, and he's already got worked himself up to about maybe the third pick, and so he's the guy that's appealing to me. Caleb Williams, I mean, good player, very, very talented individual. He's already got some off-field controversies, some issues. He likes the attention. I just don't like that. If I'm an organization, I'm staying away from that. And I think the Bears are going to hit on a really good receiver with their second pick.
Okay.
So I feel like I think they can take a chance on the quarterback pick being somebody other than Caleb Williams. I just feel like he's got bust written on him. And again, I'm not a football analyst, but it seems like everybody's super high on him. He's not on my top. In fact, I would probably maybe put him as the third pick from a quarterback standpoint for me. I just like the way the other guys played, carried themselves. Stuff like that. And then the number one receiver is no doubt in my mind Marvin Harrison Jr. I just think when you're talking about guys with less risk of a draft pick, receivers seem to be the way to go. And I know it's a quarterback heavy league, and that's the foundation of your teams. But it seems to be first round wide receivers pan out statistically better than sometimes your quarterback roll of the dice are. And so it's if that's a dire need for you, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., whoever lands him is going to be a pretty sweet deal for sure. So.
All right. I'm gonna add a little bit. I don't know if Caleb Williams will go first either. I guess I'm the second person in America, along with my cousin Jason Menard, to agree.
Well, I think he'll go. I think he'll go first. That's not what I would choose. I'm not so long. I do think he'll go first, though.
Yeah, I got you. I wouldn't say the top five. I would say the people I like are obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. I like Joe Alt for the Chiefs connection. I think he may even go higher than fourth or fifth. JJ McCarthy obviously is the top one. I like Jared Verse out of Florida State. I don't know if you heard that name, Jared or JB.
I would have to look at my notes.
And Brock Bowers, he's always fun to watch out of Georgia.
Oh, yeah, he is.
The last thing would be Jaden Daniels. So I do think in terms of the top 10, I think those five guys are definitely off the board. But again, they're all slated to be in the top 10 anyway. So those are my thoughts.
I agree. I have not under any circumstances liked Caleb Williams' attitude at all this whole entire time. Before he even finishes college, which again, his last season wasn't anything to crack up about. There was already word coming out of his camp that, that he was only going to go to a team if he could have partial ownership of it. And that was a big thing. And then, which it's like, okay, who are you? Right. You're like, we're giving you the opportunity to make money in the pros. And and we go back to NIL and Transfer Portal. That's what happens. These people aren't playing for money anymore. These no-name people are making millions of dollars on these NIL deals in college. So now to them, well, if they're doing their money properly, I don't need your rookie contract because I can go and pull an Eli Manning and go wherever I want to go. So again, not to go there again, but nevertheless, it all ties in. But yes, I do agree with Jason. I think he's going to go first. Washington second. They're going to need another QB. If I'm them, I would want to go JJ or Jaden Daniels before Drake May. Drake May is a good quarterback. But I see him again. It's kind of like a Sam Howell. They went North Carolina quarterback before with Sam Howell. And so I don't necessarily know if I'm sold, on Drake May being, that high. He's a great QB, but I don't know if second to them. So if me, I would either look at either Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
The Broncos, they're going to be in need of a QB.
Oh yeah.
So again, I see them, going a Jaden Daniels, maybe a JJ McCarthy there. So obviously, very quarterback heavy there. So I certainly could see that. Arizona's got number 4. They've obviously have no. I mean, I don't think they're not. I mean, they're sold on their quarterback situation, which is great. So they need some help, right? A wide receiver. So I see them going after like a Malik Neighbors, or Marvin Harrison, or the guy out of Washington. I don't Odunze. I see them going fairly high. Like the next 3 picks after that have decent quarterback play ish. So like the Cardinals, the Chargers, and the Giants, they're all kind of sold on their QBs at the moment. So I think they go out there and get some firepower there. The Bucks needs, though, I see are so they actually have 7 picks in this draft. And there are certainly some players that they lost, right? So they decided to cut ties with their contract with Shaq Barrett. I talked about him week 1 or 2. He's the guy that even after winning the Super Bowl and wanting to come back, was there for the money. And so all these other players like Tom Brady and Mike Evans restructuring their deals in order to make more cap space in order to keep everybody there. He was the guy that was wanting more money and just didn't see it the same way. So cut ties with him. Devin White, that was a huge loss. So going to Philly. So, go do your thing, which I don't understand. It's like, we just beat Philly and we were going to give you a bunch of money to stay there and went to the divisional round and almost beat Detroit. I mean, it was a good showing for Detroit to go play in the championship game, divisional championship game. So again, I don't necessarily see what that move is, but nevertheless, more power to him. So the Bucks needs are going to be like an offensive line. Got to have a lot of help there on offensive line to help out Baker Mayfield. They re-signed him. They re-signed Levante David, Mike Evans. They did trade away Carlton Davis, I believe, to the Lions for another pick. So, certainly a lot of needs. But, Jason Litt, he's shown that he can do a great job at getting players, right? Either through trade or in the draft. He knows what he's doing there. He put together a Super Bowl team. He brought in Tom Brady. So he knows what he's doing there. But so an edge guy, linebacker with the loss of Devin White and Carlton Davis, and then an offensive line. So those are our big,
wish list
that really that we need, positions that we need there. So, kind of coming down to us, the first pick that we have is 26th overall. So maybe a corner. One out of PFF, Pro Football Focus, has cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. With Carlton Davis being gone, they need his real name. Dead serious. Kool-Aid, KOOL.
I want to see his birth certificate. Hey, Kool-Aid.
Have you ever seen that Key and Peele skit?
Yes. That's what that sounds like. Absolutely.
Skit right now.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah, they just make up a bunch of names.
Yeah.
Well, then right after that,
for sure.
Right after that, they have edge Chop Robinson from Penn State going to Arizona. So Kool-Aid McKinstry, a great quarterback one, out of Alabama. So potential first round pick there for the Bucks. So that's the Bucks needs. That's my top 5. And that's where I got to stand on that. So it's going to be interesting how it goes. A lot of top talent there, wide receiver and QB wise. So this one kind of, it excites me a little bit more because, you get to those drafts where those positions don't really have a lot of talent coming out of that draft class. And so it's a lot more of like offensive line, defensive line guys, going in the top 10, top 20. And it's not as exciting to me as seeing like the big playmakers, go. So this one's a little bit of an interesting draft to me. So we'll see how it goes.
I'm going to let, since Jason and I are both Chiefs fans, I'm going to let him go first, but I'm just real fast before we do that. When I go through it, I'm just going to say some names I think will go in the first 3 rounds for the Chiefs to address some of the needs that we have. But first, we have the first round, 32nd pick. We have 7, 64th, 95th in the 3rd, 131st in the 4th. We have in the 5th round, we have 2 picks, one from the Cowboys, 159th, and then we have a compensatory pick at 173rd, also in the 5th round. We skip the 6th, and we have one in the 7th from the Panthers, and we've done very well in the 6th, 7th rounds over the years. Harrison Butker, Isaiah Pacheco, we've really picked up some gems at the end of the draft. So before I kind of tell you my 8 to 10 names, Jason, I'd love to give you the floor since we'll probably say some of the same ones.
Yeah, I may go a different route as far as I may be more generic and go where I think position wise we go. And I'll let you maybe hammer some names out. But this is my confidence in having a generational guy like Pat Mahomes. He's just that guy that you could put the three of us as his wide receiver core, we're going to go win the Super Bowl, right? Like he's that good.
Yeah.
And so I feel like everybody's sitting there like, give him a number one receiver, give him a number one receiver. I'm like, I think you could take some average guys and he's going to make that offense that good. I think you're starting to get to the point where you're trying to think about replacing Travis Kelce in that tight end position. Not now. So with me, the wide receiver, I know our wide receiver room is really wide open right now with Rashee Rice not knowing what's happening. We haven't signed Valdez Scantling and Mecole Hardman back yet. They're open, they're available. I mean, we could probably get them back for cheap, but so the wide receiver room is pretty open right now, but that's not where I would probably put my focus. I would replace L'Jarius Sneed early, maybe with the first pick at a good corner, find the best available corner we got. Draft him at that time, late the number 32 pick. And the other thing is I would protect my quarterback. So offensive line, I'm protecting my generational quarterback because we need him 17 games a year healthy. And then the other side is if you can get your defense a top 3 defense every single year and you're scoring and you're keeping opponents to 18 to 21 points a game, Pat Mahomes will score 24 or more points a game. And he's going to win you a lot of football games doing that. Even with average wide receivers, he's that good. And so that's where I'm at is you get your defense shored up to maintain a top 5 defense as long as you have Mahomes. And, if you can get maybe through some trades, maybe a good receiver now and again. But that's kind of the direction I would go. So a little more generic. I'll let you maybe use some names. Those are where I think the Chiefs should focus.
Honestly, I absolutely agree. I think those are the 2 needs overall. I mean, we've heard a lot of the analysts say this. The front room, for the head of the office of the Chiefs have said this as well. So there's really 2 needs. Obviously, the wide receiver room, we need another name or 2. And then offensive tackle, very specifically on the offensive line, to protect our generational quarterback. So some of the names that people have thrown around, I've done some research as well. And by the way, before I go through the offensive tackles and the wide receivers, there is one cornerback that they've had their eye on, which is close nearby to home, from Missouri, Enos Rakestraw Jr. I don't know if you've seen some of his tape, but pretty impressive. They actually may slide him up because they do need some help in the D-back with L'Jarius Sneed leaving. But some of the wide receivers that, he literally set the new combine record faster than Tyreek Hill, Xavier Worthy out of Texas. I don't know if you guys have seen his tape. Good Lord Almighty. I just pray that the Chiefs can pull somebody like that. Or if he goes to the Cowboys or someone else, Adonai Mitchell is also available from the Texas Longhorns. We've got Ladd McConkey out of Georgia. He's an option for us. And then the last one I think would be Troy Franklin out of Oregon. So probably one of those 4 receivers we'll see go in the first, second round to the Chiefs because we do need help, like Jason said. And in terms of offensive tackles, there's probably 4 that I think the Chiefs are eyeing. It's Patrick Paul out of Houston, which is a little bit of a sleeper. We've got Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. We've got Kingsley Sumataya. You've probably heard that name out of BYU. There's the BYU connection for the Chiefs. And then the last one, which is kind of close to home, which is Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. We've had great success picking up Oklahoma guys over the years, including Creed Humphrey and others. So, and then nearly, at present, the Chiefs have about $20 million in cap space. Thank you, Mr. Pat Mahomes, for restructuring your contract and getting rid of L'Jarius Sneed. So we have to take into consideration some of the 7 rounds in terms of money that has to go to some of these rookies. So we're going to have about, give or take, $8 million is going to be spent on Thursday to sign these guys. So what that's done is that's allowed the front office to have about $12 million to play with if we want to go pick up, say, a veteran or 2 from the free agency. So we're going to have a little bit of money left over, which is pretty nice. I think they've done a good job of re-signing all their, the defensive line, everybody else. So that's kind of my idea of who will probably pick up first, second, third rounds. We shall see on Thursday, huh?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it's exciting time. Again, as I said earlier in the show, always happy to talk, football and in the early portion of the year. So it's exciting. Yeah. The PFF actually has, you mentioned him, Jeremiah, Ladd McConkey.
McConkey.
You're the one that was talking for a while. I know you're shutting me down.
This is on me. This is on me this time.
Ladd McConkey. Yeah. It was interesting. His numbers here before we close. Said he had 3.26 yards per route, which ranks 4th in the class, and 86.5% of his targets were deemed open. So those are pretty good. So although it said that his production, like numbers wise, doesn't isn't huge, like he just wasn't like the big receiver, obviously with Bowers. But it's shown to be a good slot guy on those money downs. So for Patrick Mahomes. Not that we care. Go Bucks. But nevertheless. All right, guys and girls. Thank you all for coming in and listening today. Jason, again, thank you, man, for coming on the show and being our guy for the whole show today. We really just appreciate your time and all that you have had to say. We are. I'm going to go and lower my blood pressure now that we're done talking about the NIL and Transfer Portal stuff, and just praying to God that we don't get any more big hits from Florida State today. It's what was so funny is I was literally talking to my buddy about it. And he's like, yesterday, it was just before dinner time, and he's like, "Yeah, I haven't looked today." And we were talking about Montravius, and he was the only guy that cut the touchdown or whatever. And then we go and we sit down. I pull up my phone and get on Facebook, and that's the first thing: breaking news. He'd entered the transfer portal. I said, "You've got to be kidding me!" He's like, "What?" And I just showed him my phone. He's like, "Wow!" And it was like breaking news of like 17 minutes prior to that. So we're literally talking about this guy, and now he's gone. And so that's why I always tell people stay away from social media. It just get your blood pressure going, But again, thank you all for joining in on our show today. Episode 5 is in the books. Thank you all, Jason. Again, thank you for coming on our show. We'd love to have you again sometime soon. Jeremiah, you got anything else before we sign off?
Nope. I'd say continue listening. We have some more special guests like Jason coming up, and as always, stay prayed up.
Stay prayed up. Chop Nation, we love you guys. Thank you again for listening. Real fast, I'm going to put this up there for any of those that are, well, I guess if you're watching, you wouldn't see it on here. But you can go to @chop-talk-podcast on YouTube to watch our YouTube feed, or you can look us up on any of the major platforms like Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or any of those other ones. Just look us up on any of those, and you can see all of our episodes each and every week. And it's because of you that we continue to do this. So again, thank you all. Have a blessed rest of your day. God bless you.
Take care.